everyone. And welcome. Third time's a charm. And the first thing up will be our approval of prior meeting minutes. Did you get a chance to look at those by chance? Were there any additions or corrections to the minutes? Ah, there's Chrystal. Did you want to go ahead and get Chris? Oh, it looks like she is unmuted. Did you need to promote Chrystal?
Sure, I can. Yeah, I apologize. I don't know. Was Chrystal on the agenda here? Let me promote. Okay. Chrystal, you're promoted, so now you can be on video if you would like. Pardon me.
If there are no additions or corrections to the minutes, is there a motion to approve them?
So moved.
A second?
Well, I wasn't at the last meeting, so I can't.
Okay. Oh, second. Okay.
Yes.
Thank you. The minutes shall be submitted. Thank you very much. And we don't have fire department representation during our virtual meetings because of the COVID protocols, but they do continue to have their updates on their website. So one can always go to the fire department site and get the latest news of what's going on with them. And typically, hi, Chrystal.
Hi. I don't have much light in here.
Okay.
I don't know if you can hear me.
Yes, can hear you
Okay.
loud and clear.
Oh, good. That works at least.
And going down our agenda, since we do have Cameron all here representing THPRD in Mike's absence, we'll have Cameron go ahead and give us the update for them.
Okay, wonderful. Good evening, everybody. We've had a few exciting things happen as of late, so I'll update you on some highlights. I'll go over our latest COVID news, some staff promotions, and then some open applications that we have for the district. On September 13th of this year, so just a few days ago, THPRD was pleased to announce that the district's visioning process was selected for 2 national awards. The Public Involvement Project of the Year in the United States, and as the winner of the Core Values Award for Respect for Diversity, Equity, Inclusion, and Culture. So starting in 2019, 13 members of this visioning process group spoke with over 10,000 people, collected more than 12,000 ideas, held 117 engagement events, promoted intentional youth engagement from preschool through high school age kids, focused on engagement of underserved populations through translation, interpretation, and focus groups with community-based organizations, and also pledged to adopt the Vision Action Plan by the THPRD Board of Directors in September of last year. So that's pretty exciting. The news just came through a few days ago that we won both of those awards. So that's good. I know the district in the last couple of years have put a lot of resources and time and thought into increasing our DEIA awareness, inclusive hiring practices, how we reach out to the community. So that's a big deal for us.
And Cameron, could you tell me again
Yeah.
who the source was for these awards,
The source?
or who you got the awards from?
Oh, gotcha. It would have been from the national organization that held the Public Involvement Project of the Year in the United States.
I'm just making notes.
Gotcha. And then the second one was the Core Values Award for Respect. And I can double back up with you about the organization that actually sponsored those. I just know that a group of 13 people with Tualatin Hills have been putting together that and then applied for it, and then was received the award just recently.
Okay.
Doug Mankey sent out an email updating us on that just a couple days ago. So I thought that'd be good to include.
Thank you.
Of course. For a big personnel change for Tualatin Hills, Aisha Panis has stepped into a new role at Tualatin Hills as the district's first Park Services Director. We haven't had that position before, so it was created pretty much to provide some uniformity to all of our current departments and working together. And she's been with the district for a long time. She served 6 years as the Park and Recreation Director And before that, she was in design and development as the planning director. So Aisha, moving forward, will be in charge of the planning department, design and development, maintenance operations, and the nature and trails departments. So what the management team was hoping to do with the creation of this position was creating a holistic team that oversees the development of our parks, trails, natural spaces from the idea generation stage through the planning and acquisition, design and development, community engagement, and ongoing maintenance and activation. So all of our departments work together pretty well, but what Aisha hopes to do is continue to get us to work together more effectively so our parks serve the community as best as possible, and that's as smooth as we can make it and as efficient as we can make it. So Aisha will do a great job. She's fantastic, all the experiences I've had with her. She'll also serve as the designated acting general manager whenever Doug Mankey is out of office. So Aisha officially began her new role September 1st of this year. Sorry, Sue, I know that was kind of a lot. Was there any other clarifying points? So in terms, I'll move over to some COVID protocols just to give you an update on where Tualatin Hills is at. When President Biden announced that all employers with more than 100 workers must require employees to be either vaccinated or test for the virus weekly, we believe that this does include THPRD as well as we have more than 100 employees. At this point, we're just awaiting for guidance from OSHA to release specific details for us in terms of how this mandate will be administered. So we're definitely, this is always a changing thing for everybody, and we would fall into the category that President Biden has designated for that. So yeah, we're just in a waiting game for that. And then lastly, that I had on the update list here, we are accepting applications for our advisory committees for our nature and trails, parks and facilities, and programs and events. We're accepting, applications for all those, and that can be found online in the Connect tab on Tualatin Hills' main page. So I can send over what I'm on my notes as well, just in case you want to grab
Oh, that would be wonderful.
more information out of there.
Yes, that would be great. Thank you.
So that's what I've got so far for the park district. People are coming back to the facilities. A lot of kiddos are participating in our programs. Maintenance, we're hiring some folks back. Preschool starting up at the Jenkins Estate. I know we're going to be having staff there through the fall and spring. We're just doing what we can to get back to as normal as possible and continue to provide services.
That's great. It certainly has been a long dry period. And I know from what I hear from parents with younger children that it really hasn't been all that successful. They're kind of concerned about their academic progress.
Sure. Yeah.
Thank you. Any questions for Cameron? Well, I think, Cameron, if Mike and his wife had a cake to celebrate, they should have saved you a piece.
Yes,
I was going to ask one question. I mean, as far as it, I go to the nature park at times, the one off 160th, and sometimes there's a lot of people in there. So are you guys recommending people masking? Or I know it's outdoors, but you get in that place, if you got a lot of people close together, even outdoors, that's not good. So I didn't know if you guys are having any thoughts about asking people to mask or not, or.
Yeah, we actually just ordered up about 700 signs that still dictate 6 feet of distance or mask wearing. We have them posted at all the entrances to all of our parks. We got those put up last week, kind of when the new resurgence of the variant came. We thought it was prudent to put out more information about that. And we advise people that if there are people that are specifically disobeying this or making other people uncomfortable, just contact our park patrol. Hopefully we can take care of it as soon as possible. But we definitely hope that folks see those signs and continue to be cognizant of that when they're around other people.
Thank you.
Yep.
Yeah, thank you. I was wondering about that as well, so I'm glad you asked that, Kate. Any other questions? Well, thank you, Cameron, for another wonderful informative presentation for us.
And thanks for your time, everybody. I appreciate it.
And I do see that we have our guest presenter tonight, Kevin Barton, who's a DA with Washington County. And at this point, let's go ahead and welcome Kevin and take it away.
Okay, thank you. It's good to be with you all, albeit virtually here tonight. My name is Kevin Barton. I am the district attorney, the elected district attorney in Washington County. I really appreciate the opportunity to come speak. What I have is probably about, maybe 10 minutes or so of just some comments I thought I'd share to fill you in a little bit more about our office. And then I really want to make this as conversational and as useful as possible. So what I usually tell folks is ask me anything. Nothing is off limits. If I don't know the answer, I'll figure it out and get back to you. And if I can't tell you the answer, I'll tell you why. But I've found that a lot of the work that we do in the DA's office, it's really interesting stuff. It's the law and order, the criminal stuff that you watch on the news, all of it in Washington County filters through our office. It's also a lot of topics that people have strong opinions about. And I really love being able to try and answer questions that folks have. So if it's okay, I think I'll share my screen for a bit. I do have just 10 slides to share with you, 10 PowerPoint slides, only to spur conversation. So let me do that now. And then feel free to interrupt me, but you should all be seeing my screen. And let me see if I can start this slideshow here from the beginning. So the first thing to say is we're on all the social media channels. If you're ever interested in what's happening in the DA's office or what's happening with criminal justice issues here in our county, there's plenty of information that's out there. So we have a website that's on the bottom of your screen. You're welcome to look at it now as I'm speaking to you. We also have all the usual social media places that people look: Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, etc. We do our best to put out information about not just the cases that we're handling, but also different projects and initiatives that we're working on. When I talk about what we do in the DA's office, there's kind of a couple threshold things to discuss. And the first is our mission statement. So the mission of the Washington County District Attorney is seeking justice and protecting our community. And what that means is, quite simply, seeking justice is doing the right thing for the right reason. And protecting our community is always remembering that public safety is our priority. So taking it back a step away from our mission statement, the district attorney is responsible for prosecuting all crimes, or almost all crimes, with some exceptions, but almost all crimes that occur in any given county. Now in Beaverton, where you are, there's a small exception there, which is you have a municipal court that actually handles some lower level misdemeanor crimes, things like drunk driving or lower level thefts. We handle some of Beaverton's misdemeanor cases, so child abuse, domestic violence misdemeanors we'll handle, but the lower level cases that have less of an impact on public safety, your city attorney's office in your Beaverton Municipal Court does handle. Let me share with you a little bit about me, just so you know who's talking to you. So as I said at the beginning, I am the elected district attorney. The DA is elected every 4 years, and this is coming up on the end of my first term, and I'll be running for re-election here this coming May of 22. Before I came to the DA's office, I grew up and lived in this community myself, so I'm kind of a local kid. I went to school out of state at Gonzaga and Notre Dame for my law school, and then came back here and really felt drawn to doing this work. I started in our misdemeanor division, which is literally in the basement of our office, and kind of worked my way through the office, handling different types of cases. And then, as I said earlier, ran for DA back in 2018. I live in Sherwood, so down the street and around the corner from where you all are a little bit. And I've got 3 kids. They're in elementary and middle school. So what I always tell people is, for me, this is a real personal thing because I want this community to be safe for my family, just as I'm sure all of you want it for yours. Thought what I'd do today is give you a little bit of an overview of the office, just kind of a 30,000 foot perspective of what we do. Then talk with you about some of our specialty courts that we have, and then 3 or 4 of what are some of our community initiatives that we're working on. So snapshot of the office, we've got a little over 130 employees. We're the 2nd largest DA's office in the state. The largest is in Multnomah County, which is the most populous county in the state. We serve about 12,500 crime victims every year. So we process nearly 12,000 criminal cases every year. In those cases, we don't file charges for every single case that comes across our desk. There's a triage and a review process, and for different reasons. Sometimes there's not enough information, or we don't feel like we have enough evidence to meet the very high standard of proving a case beyond a reasonable doubt. But we file charges in roughly 9,000 cases every year. So roughly 3,000 of those cases don't proceed forward for one reason or another. In a typical non-COVID year, we would try about 300 cases in court, which is what we would normally do. Obviously with COVID, everything's had to change a bit. So we take fewer cases to trial just because the amount of cases our courthouse can accommodate is fewer because of social distancing and other pandemic restrictions. But we have been open for business throughout the pandemic. We've literally handled thousands and thousands of cases, thousands of witnesses, thousands of crime victims throughout the pandemic. So we've been very busy. We never went virtual. We always remained providing an in-person service. I was in the office earlier today. I still have my tie on from earlier, although I'll confess I'm at home right now because I snuck home to get dinner before tonight's presentation. We do handle money in a couple of instances that are relatively minor. One of them is if you're a victim of a crime, we will help you get a court order for what's called restitution. So let's say your car is stolen and there's an insurance deductible to buy that new car, and we catch the person who stole your car and we prosecute that person. We would ask the judge to order that person to pay you back for your deductible so that you're not out of pocket. We also help collect money for parents who are owed child support when the court has ordered one parent to pay another child support payments, and you see the numbers in front of you. We do that because the law allows for that to happen and for the DA to do it, but also a real strong belief that having stable families and a good roof over our head and food on the table for kids really helps make our society, our community, a safer, better community. So that's really getting these kids in a good spot. That is really key to our mission statement of seeking justice and protecting the community. I wanted to share with you a little bit about our specialty courts and treatment programs. So what you have on your screen, I'm not going to talk about all of them. These are the programs that we have in the office. Every one of these programs is what I'm going to call part of a 21st century approach to criminal prosecution. If I were to give you this presentation, maybe back in the 1980s or early 1990s, we wouldn't have these programs. We might have 1 or 2, may not have any of them. These are all things that we've realized in the last 20 years are a smarter way of doing the work that we do. So I'll give you an example of what I mean by that. Let's take just a typical crime of theft. Let's say your identity's been stolen, or your mail's been stolen, or your car has been stolen, but something's been stolen. Generally speaking, in my experience, there's 2 motivations when people steal that are possible, generally. The first possible motivation is greed. I want what somebody else has and I steal it. There's really nothing you can do to treat the issue of greed other than you make the penalty greater than that greedy person is willing to sacrifice. So if you steal, you will go to jail. And then that's how you stop greedy people from stealing. They think twice about it, don't do it again because they don't want to go to jail. That's kind of a logical approach. The other reason, though, that we have theft crimes, and this is an increasingly problematic issue, is people are feeding an addiction. So there's an underlying drug addiction at play. And, they steal to feed that addiction, to sell something, to go buy drugs, and then they commit the crime again and again and again. What we found is if we take those people and we send them to prison, they won't be committing the crime while they're in prison, but unless we address the underlying drug issue, they're going to be right back at it when they get out on the streets, and they're going to be out on our streets in our community typically. So the smarter way of doing things is to try and run these people through a treatment program, something like a drug court, or we have something called Veterans Treatment Court for service veterans who are dealing with some PTSD issues connected to their service and are committing crimes. And we found that those treatment programs are by and large very successful. So one stat for one of our treatment programs is after 5 years, roughly 75% of the graduates are crime free. And that's better than if we had sent them the more traditional route. So it doesn't always work, and it's not for everyone, and it doesn't really address what are public safety crimes. So the violent criminals would not be eligible for this, but property crimes would be something we would run through one of these treatment programs. And the picture you have in front of you is one of our graduates. I go to every graduation from our drug court, shake the hands of every graduate, and it's really touching to see how it impacts families and the ripple effect of the positives that can come from that. I want to finish by just sharing with you 3 different initiatives that we're working on in the DA's office. And the benefit, or one really huge plus of being the elected DA, is I have an incredible platform that I can use to do good things. So we have our daily work we have to do, prosecute crimes, but we also have extra things we can do. And one of them is a group that I've been part of now for 6 years. It's called Building Bridges of Understanding in Our Communities. And you can see the description on the screen in front of you, but essentially we came together about 6 years ago, and this is before George Floyd, before we've had kind of the social strife in the last couple of years, but came together to try and have a better way of addressing some of these causes of tension in our society. So trying to understand why these things exist and what we can do to address it. We put on an event every year. It's open to the public. We've got one coming up this October. There's a website on the screen in front of you if you want to learn more. It'll be virtual this year as it was last year, and you can see the screenshot of last year's event. But we talk about things like, what does it mean when people say police should be defunded? Or why is it that there's some distrust by some communities in law enforcement? How is it that law enforcement can do a better job of keeping people safe? And what does safety mean to different people? So it's a really beneficial program. Another initiative I want to share with you is we're bringing together 2 amazing nonprofits that I have the distinct honor of being part of. One is called CARES Northwest, which is a child abuse clinic primarily located in Portland. They treat children who've been abused or neglected. The other is called our Family Justice Center of Washington County, and that's a domestic violence center for people, adults who've been subject to some form of abuse, domestic abuse. And we're bringing them together, bringing CARES out to Washington County from Portland and creating a brand new facility. It'll be called the Family Peace Center, where we're going to provide services in one spot. Think of like Washington Square Mall. It's going to be a place that has everything in one spot where anyone who's been the victim of any type of family violence, so child abuse or domestic violence, can get services. So that can be a restraining order for a parent. It can be changing locks to make sure you have a safe place to sleep if you have an abusive partner who's been abusing you, or a new place to sleep. It can be trauma therapy for your kids who've seen abuse, or a doctor's appointment for your kids who've been abused. The legislature, we found out, just allocated almost $7 million to our effort, and we're in the process of finding some property to build.
Great.
And then last couple slides here for you. I want to share with you another initiative, and that is when I became the DA almost 4 years ago, I wanted to do some work to try and diversify the composition of who's in our office. So you might recall I said there's about 130 people in the office. So we realized that it's a challenge, and it's a challenge a lot of employers have to recruit and retain diverse employees. And one thing that seemed to be missing was an ability to do that for law offices like a DA's office. So there wasn't a diversity fair that would really work for our needs that existed in Oregon. So we got together with some community partners and created our own. And what you see in front of you is a flyer for the fair we had last year, incredibly successful. It was to benefit any employer in Oregon, for anyone seeking a job, either as a lawyer or just something in the legal field in Oregon. Our office interviewed folks, and a number of offices around the state did. And I think that had the benefit of helping to diversify our legal profession, which in my opinion should, to the extent possible, should reflect the community that it serves, whether it's a DA's office or a law firm or a nonprofit or all three. So wanted to share with you that we've been busy on that. And then finally, last slide is I just thought you might like to hear about some of the specialty units that we have in the office. And I'm happy to answer questions about any of these. The picture you have is at a swearing-in ceremony earlier this year for a detective in the middle. His name is Kevin Winfield, for our cold case unit. But each of these specialty units you see in front of you handles different types of cases. So if a child has been abused, that case would run through our child abuse unit. If a juvenile, let's say a 17 or a 16-year-old is committing crimes, we would deal with that in a specialty juvenile unit in a juvenile court, not in adult court. For domestic violence, we have a dedicated unit, and that cold case unit actually is something that we tried to get some funding for from the county. The county provides our budget. The county said, I'm sorry, no money available for that. We have, oh boy, several dozen unsolved homicides going back to the 1960s. So what we did was we were able to find a federal grant. We applied for it. It's a competitive grant, and we found out that we were awarded the grant, and that would allow us to employ several individuals to be part of our cold case unit. And we're going through cases dating back to the late 1960s and checking to see if advances in DNA can help us solve some of these unsolved homicides. And I'll tell you, in talking to the families, it might be 30 to 40 years ago, but for a number of these family members, it's as though it were yesterday. So I use the phrase cold case, but it's very much not cold for them. And again, that goes directly with our mission statement of seeking justice and protecting the community. So that's it in a nutshell. I'm going to stop sharing my screen, and I am more than happy to answer any questions anyone might have. Yes, Cate.
You also have, I know Karin Hanning also works for elder abuse too. So you also have someone who works specifically to help with that, which I think is a valuable thing to do. So thank you.
Yeah, thank you for mentioning that. So I tried to highlight some of our segregated specialty teams where that's all they do. So the prosecutors on our child abuse team, that's all they do is child abuse. And our DV team, that's all they do is domestic violence. But we do have an elder abuse team where we take prosecutors who handle different types of cases, and part of their caseload is elder abuse. And we work really closely with the sheriff's office, who does provide some of that additional investigative resource for us to help out our aging community, because there's more and more of those folks who are being taken advantage of.
Mm-hmm. Good for you. You're right. And those are some of the saddest stories to hear when people get then. And when you talked about working a special group working with vets, what makes vets? I mean, is there a certain type of crime that they tend to do because of imprinting from war, or what does that look like?
Thanks for asking that. I didn't do a great job explaining that. So let me try and paint some more details there. So those specialty courts are really tailored to help out the population that we're serving. And what we learned over the years is that United States service vets, so people who spent time in the military, come back and sometimes have a service-related issue they're dealing with. It can be a physical injury that they're dealing with. It can be PTSD, which is a mental issue that they're dealing with. And then sometimes it manifests itself with self-medication. So maybe they'll drink or use, some type of controlled substance. And then sometimes that can turn into a crime. So it can be a drunk driving, or it can be a controlled substance addiction, where let's say they're addicted to, this is common actually, addicted to an opioid that a doctor has prescribed for an injury. And then that turns into a heroin addiction that they get on the streets. And then that turns into, maybe they'll commit some theft crimes to feed that heroin addiction. So rather than putting them in our traditional drug court, we found that, number one, we can get some great additional resources available for them through the VA. So that program is in partnership with the VA and all the federal resources. And number two, they respond to just some different types of motivation. So we have prosecutors who are service veterans, a judge who's a service veteran, defense attorneys who are as well. And use some of that military approach that actually seems to really resonate quite well with that population. And I'm proud to say we've been running it now for 3 years. We've only had one person who's graduated who's committed another crime after graduation. So, knock on wood, it's been a very successful program that it's just everyone agrees, yeah, that's a worthwhile thing to do. The theory is, hey, if something about their service put them in a situation, we want to be able to give back to them with this program.
Thank you. That's very valuable. Appreciate it.
It
You
looks
bet.
like Sunita may have a question.
Yeah, first of all, I wanted to thank you for your service. You are doing a great job, making sure that there's equity and inclusion that gives us comfort. And my question is, you mentioned that, there are 2 reasons people commit crime, one being addiction and the other being, what did you say? Greed. What about cases where, there's need? A person may be a homeless or is a child, maybe home, because there's a lot of homelessness in Oregon and poverty. How does your court or how do you support those type of people with services before they go into, court? Like for maybe you can give me an example, like you said, you have 9,000 cases out of which 6,000 goes to court. So how many people actually get services and how many people actually go to jail?
Thank you. So let me try and address everything you've asked there. Starting first with, when I said that there's generally 2 reasons that people commit crime, I was referring to property crime or theft crimes. So I'm not talking about other types of crimes because there are a multitude of reasons why someone might commit a violent crime or a sexual crime or what I'll call a public order or a public nuisance crime, like graffiti or, being on somebody else's property, which is called criminal trespass. So I'm only talking about stealing when I say generally 2 reasons why people commit that type of crime. There are more than 2, but generally speaking. To answer your question about those issues when we deal with the homeless or the houseless community, those are significant, and you are correct. There's a lot going on there, and there are a lot of resources that we try to bring to bear. When I talk about the criminal justice system, though, the challenge for our system is we come into action after a crime has occurred, generally not before. So it's a linear A to B to C, or put differently, think of the criminal justice system like an emergency room in a hospital. And somebody presents in the criminal justice system when there's an emergency, when there's been a concern. Oftentimes, though, that person or that crime or that incident was, months or years in the making. So if someone comes to the hospital with a heart attack, the hospital will do what they can to repair the damage and stabilize the patient and set them along their way. That's what we do in the DA's office. But diet, exercise, genetics, proper care, and all those things, which took years in the making, have led to that scenario. So when we think about society and we're dealing with mental health issues or addiction issues or homeless, houseless, job, healthcare issues, there's only so much the criminal justice system in its reactionary capacity can do. So that's where we look to other parts of our government to spring into action. And I'm not going to tell you that the government does well in all those areas. It clearly does not. There's a significant lack of available mental health treatment in Oregon. I think that's a well-recognized, sad reality. Same thing with drug addiction, et cetera. Now, we do try to work in collaboration with those partners once the crime has occurred. But the problem is, once a crime's occurred, our hands are a bit tied, because by that point in time, we have a victim of a crime and we have someone who's broken the law. And although there may be motivations behind breaking that law, our system is predicated on holding people accountable and trying to set them up for success down the road. So I hope I've answered your question. And if there's any part you'd like me to expand on, I'm more than happy to.
So how about like the penalties that they get, like if it's their first crime or something, like from your 6,000 cases, do they end up going to jail or what happens to them?
Thank you. I forgot to talk about that. So first, the numbers. So there's roughly 12,000 criminal cases that come in the front door. Approximately 9,000 of those get charged. Now that's everything ranging from murders all the way down to the lowest of a crime, stealing, something worth $50, let's say. Very few people go to jail. The Washington County, our county has one jail only, unlike Multnomah County and other counties. We have only one jail. It's located in Hillsborough. When we don't have COVID, it holds 572 beds. When we do have COVID, it holds something closer to 350 and 400 beds because of social distancing. By and large, the people in the jail are committing violent crimes. So if you were to go right now and walk into Fred Meyer's and steal a television, and they were to catch you stealing a television as you lugged it out of Fred Meyer's, you would most likely not go to jail. Or if you did go to jail that night, then the jail would most likely immediately release you on what's called a recognizance release or conditional release. And then you'd be told, please show up to court 30 days from now, because our jail just does not have the capacity. So the reality is people going to jail generally are committing the violent crimes. Now, when you do go to court, and let's say, you were caught red-handed stealing that TV, and why'd you steal a TV? Because I was greedy and I wanted a TV. Let's say you just say, I did it and I wanted that TV. You would most likely not go to jail for your punishment at that point either. Generally speaking, you would receive what's called a probationary sentence. And that is because the system is so overwhelmed, there's not room in the jail for you. And if you don't have a criminal history, a judge would most likely not give you that penalty for committing a lower level crime. Now that changes as you change. So let's say you steal that TV Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, and now you've stolen 7 TVs over 7 days. Eventually, a judge is going to send you to jail. But if you've got an addiction issue or a mental health issue, then the judge is going to look for one of those specialty courts to put you into. So it really depends on the circumstances and the factors at play. Homeless individuals, houseless individuals, if they're out in the street or they're committing lower level crimes, one of the great challenges in our business community is there's a great amount of frustration that the police generally are not arresting them and taking them to jail, because the jail generally these days won't be able to book them. And so then the issue is we have a homeless person, maybe with a mental health issue or a drug addiction issue. They won't voluntarily go into treatment. They can't be taken to jail. What happens? And it creates tension in the communities. And if there's any business owners in the room, you may be familiar with that, or you may have colleagues who've been familiar with that dynamic.
So how do you handle it then as a DA? What happens to that person?
Well, so if a person is arrested, then we look at that person to determine first, was a crime committed? That's the threshold question when it comes in the door. And if a crime was committed, and if that means if we can prove a crime was committed, which includes, we would look at the person with the information we have available. There's every crime in Oregon has what's called a mental state, and that you have to prove that someone committed the crime on purpose or intentionally or knowingly or with the required level of mental state. So if someone is obviously mentally ill when they commit the crime, we would have to take that into account and decide, can we prove a crime occurred here? If we believe we can prove a crime would occur, that person would be charged. They would get an attorney provided by the state, the taxpayers, if they can't afford an attorney, or they could have their own attorney. And then they would go through the criminal system where they would have a right to a trial, which every American has a right to have, because in our system, you're innocent until proven guilty. If they choose to exercise that right, then we would prove the case to a judge or a jury. If they decided instead to say, I want to plead guilty, then we would have a conversation with their attorney about what a reasonable penalty or sentence might be. And then they would go to a judge, and a judge would ultimately be the one who decides what the sentence should be, depending on the severity of the crime and the needs of the individual. If they have mental health needs, that might include required mental health treatment. If they have addiction issues, it might include required drug treatment. And so it really depends on the person that we're dealing with. If we're dealing with a homeless individual who's not living in a house, doesn't have a place to go, that is unfortunately not something the criminal justice system is equipped to handle. But we would rely on the other aspects of government, which would include the county housing department and other areas there that address homeless issues.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
You bet. Good questions.
Any other questions for Kevin? I think you're all muted, so if you're saying something to me, okay. Thank you very much, Kevin. That certainly was a very informative presentation. And I know that there's a great deal more that your office does and provides, and this is kind of an overview for us. Would you be, excuse me, I should mute me. Would you consider probably revisiting us and going into detail on some other aspects of the DA's office in the future?
Yes, thank you for the time this evening. I respect, it's never easy late in the evening to have these conversations. So thank you for being interested in this. I'm always happy to come back. We have a lot of wonderful people that work in my office. So if your group is interested in hearing more about a particular area from someone other than me, so if you want to hear about child abuse and what do we do with that, or our sexual assault response team, or any particular area of interest, just let me or let Stephen, who was in contact with you, Sue, let us know, and we're happy to send someone and answer questions and talk about any particular area.
Great, thank you very much. So for all of you joining tonight too, let me know if there's specific areas that you would like information about, and we can pursue that. And thank you so much for taking time out of your busy schedule for us, Kevin.
Absolutely. Have a good night.
Thanks, you too.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye. Oh, yes, we're all applauding. Good, I like that, Kate. Okay. Next on our agenda would be an update from our City of Beaverton representative. Amy.
Yes, I have an update. I'm going to cover 3 topics. Can you all hear me okay?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
And also I will follow up in any website links that I mentioned. I'll throw those in the chat once I'm done speaking. So I'm going to give you an update about COVID-19, our special election, and the vision survey. So the first one, COVID-19. To help us mitigate the COVID-19 surge, we are witnessing dramatic increases in local COVID-19 cases as hospitalizations in Washington County and throughout the state soar due to the Delta variant. The latest data and projections show continued escalations, which are expected to further strain our healthcare providers, medical facilities, and other resources. Vaccines. Accessing available vaccines is recommended as our best defense against the virus, including the Delta variant. Vaccine information is available at co.washington.or.us/vaccine. For questions and language assistance, call 1-833-907-3520. Testing. Anyone experiencing symptoms or who has been exposed to the virus can get tested. Testing sites and location information is also available on Washington County's website at co.washington.or.us. Masks. Statewide mask requirements are in effect for everyone 5 and older in Oregon. Masks are required in most outdoor public spaces where 6 feet of distance cannot be maintained, and in all indoor spaces, indoor public spaces, pardon me. Distancing and safety. We all need to do our part to slow the spread of the virus. Maintain 6 feet of distancing, practice good hygiene, and stay home when sick. Events and outdoor gatherings. Limit gathering outdoors with people outside of your household and avoid crowds, especially where people are unmasked. You can learn more by visiting the Washington County website at co.washington.or.us/COVID-19 for the latest information and resources, including childcare, paying bills, and getting food. City resources are available at beavertonoregon.gov/coronavirus. Remember, face coverings are required when visiting all city buildings, including both library locations. Second topic is about the special election and the fall voters forum. The runoff election for Beaverton City Council Position 1 is Tuesday, September 21st. You can hear from the candidates running during the fall voters forum. The Beaverton Committee for Community Involvement hosted the live virtual event on September 9th. You can view the recording online at beavertonoregon.gov/votersforum. Today, September 15th, was the deadline to mail in your ballot. Voters will need to drop off their signed ballots at official location sites to meet the election deadline, September 21st. Ballot drop-off sites can be found at co.washington.or.us/elections. And our final topic is about the update on the Community Vision Survey. And you can help us start planning Beaverton's future. You can visit bvtn.info/August 2021 to take the survey. The community vision identifies community-inspired actions the city will work on during the next decade. The 2016 plan included 5 goals and 104 actions. The next community vision will occur in 2021-2022. The Visioning Advisory Committee is our city board that leads community outreach efforts and promotes the city's community-based visioning process. And like I mentioned, I will go ahead and post those links in the chat because I know I provided a lot of website links. Kind of hard to remember all those, just in case you wanted to explore that. Does anyone have any questions?
You said you're going to put the links in the chat?
Yep.
Okay, I'll look for that. I definitely want to fill out the last form.
Yeah, it's pretty nice. It will lead you through some, really easy questions. It really doesn't take much time to be able to provide really necessary feedback to the city on what the residents feel is important to help us shape where to focus our efforts. So it's a range of 1 to 5, what's most important to least important to you as a resident.
Great, thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Amy.
You're welcome.
Great information. Lots of information. You did it very concisely.
Thank you.
Next up on the agenda is the treasurer's report, and I do have the information for that. We currently have, and there hasn't been any change from our last meeting, we have a balance of $8,320.52. And of that amount, $2,174 is reserved for the pages as treasurer's program. And I just noticed in the minutes from the last meeting, and I will correct that. I had and in the wrong balance. Our balance was actually later. So I'm just making a note to myself about that. So again, $8,320.52, $2,174 earmarked for pages as opposed. And I would expect, given the fact that schools have opened up again, that it'll be an opportunity for us to pick up that program with Chehalim Elementary and be able to provide some of those funds in the coming months for the book purchase and handout. Any questions about the treasurer's report? All right, thank you. And next up will be our BCCI report. I do see we have Karin Olson online with us. Karin, do you have anything to report from that?
Oh, well, this was Linda's turn. I don't.
Oh.
So I don't know
Okay.
where she is.
Of course, the big thing was the Beaverton Committee for Community Involvement doing the voters affair, the voters forum. What, last week? Yeah, that was
Last week.
Yeah, I heard it went really well. I still want to go back and watch it.
Thank you. What I'll do, I'll touch base with Linda and send her a text or an email and see if she has any information, but I have put down the voters forum information, so thank you for that, Kate. Any old business?
Did you,
I'm sorry, Karen, go ahead.
did you say old business?
Yes, old business.
I was wondering what our decision was on the scholarship, the Karen Stoughton Scholarship.
As far as,
It got kind of collapsed when the COVID came.
yes. From what we have discussed so far, we do want to continue with that. And again, with schools reopening, we probably need to address, I know that Wendell did go around to the different schools to present the information we have and have those counselors provide it to graduating seniors. So we probably need to start doing something like that very soon. I know I have a contact with Aloha High School if they're to help Wendell in those efforts, because I know we talk about Valley Catholic, Beaverton High School, Aloha, and if there's students who in our area who are attending any of the schools, it just has to be a student who lives within our NAC boundaries is eligible.
I know that we had one applicant
Mhm.
and don't know exactly, would that continue on?
Yeah, I would suggest it'd be fine with me. I think it's probably a good idea to resubmit that applicant in the pool for what we have coming up this year, because that applicant probably is continuing in college.
He's at U of O right now
Okay.
and doing well.
Oh, good. Wonderful. So I think that would be splendid, given the fact that COVID hit and we shouldn't penalize his opportunity and chances because of that.
Yeah, when I talked to him about, is it hard to wear a mask and be tested and stuff? And he said, no, because you get sent home.
Oh,
And he didn't want that. I thought that was a great response.
yeah.
Great.
Thank you, Karen. Thank you for that question. Any other old business? New
Oh, are we
business.
one other thing, sorry.
Mhm.
Are we going to continue on Wednesdays?
We
I
are going,
I can't remember Wednesday to save my life.
I know.
Fit
I
in my
know. I think for the purposes of the virtual meetings, we'll certainly continue on the third Wednesday of the month. It seems to work well for the mayor's office, for Amy, for Miles. It seems to work better on your schedules. At least that's what I understood from Miles, and we've been fine with it. So for virtual, yes, and I would suspect we're going to continue virtually for a little bit. for a
on
few months to come.
Wednesdays.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I know. So we have to retrain our thoughts now, not second Thursday, third Wednesday. And speaking of which, that's a good segue. The next meeting will be the third Wednesday of October, which is October 20th. And during that meeting, we typically have our elections for our board positions. So for all of you and those who aren't present, if you're talking with them in the next few weeks, find out what positions all of you are interested in. And let me know.
Did you say October 20th?
Yes, October 20th. Let me double check that. Bring up my calendar here. So the third Wednesday, yes, October 20th. That still work for you, Amy?
Yeah, I might have a substitute, but we will see.
Okay, thank you.
Generally, though, the third Wednesday of the month is fine.
Okay, good. And then I did have an email, and we can talk about if we want to hold a meeting in January or just see if we can have this guest visit us in February. The mayor wants to visit all the NACs, and it'd be a brief visit, but she does want to visit every NAC, which I think is wonderful. I always liked it when the mayor came to visit us. And she is available, the earliest would be January. Typically, we don't meet in January. It will be the third Wednesday, so that kind of pushes it out toward the end. So my question to the group here, would you be interested in having a meeting in January? Or would you like me to just propose that her visit be the standard February meeting?
Well,
So what do you thought?
I prefer to keep our regular.
Okay. So for February, what do the rest of you think of that?
I'm good either way, whatever people think is best.
Okay. Chrystal and John?
I think so too. I don't know that there's anything the city is likely to take action on that the month would make any difference.
Okay, great. And Sunita, how do you feel about that? Would you like to come back and visit us for the mayor's visit in February?
Sure.
Okay.
Sure.
So I'll put that out there that we would like it if she comes in February. Wonderful. Thank you very much. Any other business? Oh, were you saying something, Chrystal?
I was just saying, there's nothing I can think of.
Oh, okay. Thank you. Well, again, I appreciate all of you taking time out of your evening to spend together with us. And thank you, Amy, for setting this up, and thank Miles for us as well for making it possible for us to continue these meetings, even in the current circumstances. So virtual
Yeah.
is great.
Yeah, it's our
Virtual is
pleasure.
fun. So
Thank
if-
you, everyone, for inviting me.
Oh, Sunita, come again and often.
I will try. I will try. I have
So-
now that I have joined the school board, we have lots of meetings with that one too, with the board and the subcommittee meeting. But I will try to come. If I get an email and if I can, I will try to join you guys.
Wonderful. Thank you, Sunita.
And Sunita, thank you for your service. School boards tend to be hard when it's about people's kids.
Yes, yes. Everybody has an opinion and it's not always the same, everybody has a different opinion, but we try to do whatever is the best that we can do, so that's my goal. That's my part of service, and that's the reason why I signed in. So
All right. Well, if there is no further business, I know, gosh, our virtual meetings do go faster than our in-person ones, but if there's no further business, is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
A second?
I'll second.
All right, thank you. The meeting has been adjourned. And I'll see and talk with all of you, hopefully between now and October, but definitely on the 20th.
good night, everyone.
Thank
Bye-bye.
you all. Good night.
Bye.
Thank you, Cameron, for
Thank
your
you.
presentation.
Of course, yeah. Take care.
Now what?